The Franco family's white two-story house stood quietly in the lush suburban neighborhood of Boston. November morning had arrived, with fallen leaves accumulating in the front yard, signaling the end of autumn and the coming of winter. Jasmine stood by the window, resting both hands on her heavily pregnant belly as she took slow, deep breaths. For her, this pregnancy was a miracle. After 7 years of fertility treatments, after numerous failures and moments of despair, this baby was conceived just when she had nearly given up hope. Every morning, Jasmine offered prayers of gratitude for this precious life. "Mom, look at my science project!" Hazel's cheerful voice echoed from the living room. Jasmine slowly descended the stairs and gazed at the solar system model her 8-year-old daughter proudly displayed. The project, with its accurate planetary placement and proportional sizes, reflected Hazel's delicate sensibility and intellectual curiosity. "It's wonderful, Hazel. You've really paid attention to every detail." Jasmine smiled, gently stroking her daughter's brown curls. Hazel looked pleased that her mother had praised her work. She excelled in school, with teachers recognizing her particular talents in science and art. She had a vivid imagination and occasionally surprised people with her mature behavior. "Are you going to show it to Dad? Will he be home late?" At Hazel's question, Jasmine's expression clouded momentarily. Her husband, Austin, worked as a sales manager at a medical equipment manufacturer and had become increasingly busy lately. He traveled frequently, spending less and less time at home. "Dad said he has an important meeting with clients, so he'll be late today. But you can definitely show him tomorrow morning." Jasmine spoke gently to her daughter, though small worries swirled inside her. Austin had been noticeably tired lately, with family conversations becoming less frequent. He seemed genuinely happy about the birth of their second child, but there was something unsettled about him that concerned her. Jasmine herself had worked for years as a library curator, but had taken leave on her doctor's orders after entering the late stages of pregnancy. Being forced to rest at home was difficult for her active nature, but safely delivering the baby was her top priority. In the afternoon, Jasmine prepared a light dinner for Hazel while reviewing her pre-birth checklist. 1 week until her due date. The hospital bag was almost ready, and the newborn clothes were washed and folded. They had already decided on the name Daniel, after Austin's father. The sound of the front door opening was followed by the patter of Hazel's feet, rushing to greet someone. It seemed Austin had unexpectedly returned home early. "Dad, look at my solar system!" Hazel's excited voice was followed by Austin's tired laugh. "That's amazing, Hazel. You really have talent." Jasmine emerged from the kitchen to welcome her husband. Austin's face showed signs of fatigue. His tie was loosened, and his shirt collar was wrinkled. He approached his wife, smiling at her large belly, and gave her a light kiss. The meeting ended earlier than expected. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. My back hurts a little, but the doctor says that's normal." That night, after Hazel had gone to bed, the couple relaxed in the living room watching television. Austin put his arm around Jasmine's shoulder and buried his face in her hair. "Jasmine, I'm truly happy I met you." Jasmine was slightly surprised by this sudden sentimental remark. Austin then began discussing plans for after the birth. His parents lived far away and would have difficulty visiting right after the delivery, and Jasmine's parents couldn't travel long distances due to health reasons. They concluded that their friend Brenna would be their most reliable support. Late that night, Jasmine suddenly woke to intense pain. Labor had begun, a full week before her due date. Austin was scheduled to leave for a 2-day business trip the next morning, but quickly began preparing. "I'll call Brenna," Jasmine said, fighting through the pain. "You should go on your trip. This might take a while." Austin looked hesitant, but eventually agreed to Jasmine's suggestion. Brenna arrived promptly and would take Jasmine to the hospital. Before leaving, Hazel, with half-sleepy eyes, said in a small voice, "Mom, Dad, please come back soon with the baby." By the time they reached the hospital, the contractions were coming closer together. The delivery seemed to be progressing faster than expected. Brenna contacted the hospital and informed Austin of the situation. After intense pain and a long labor, Jasmine gave birth to a healthy boy, Daniel Franco. The tiny life breathed quietly in her exhausted arms. A day after giving birth, Jasmine lay quietly in her hospital bed. Postpartum fatigue and pain still lingered throughout her body, but the presence of little Daniel sleeping in the bassinet beside her provided comfort. Morning light streamed through the window, announcing the start of a new day. The door was knocked on, and Austin entered with a bouquet of flowers. He had returned immediately from his business trip after receiving news of the birth and rushed to his wife and son. "Jasmine, you did so well. He's perfect." Austin gently picked up Daniel and gazed at him in admiration. However, Jasmine sensed something odd about Austin's behavior. He seemed happy about his son, but he appeared restless, occasionally glancing toward the hallway. "Is something bothering you?" When Jasmine asked, Austin hastily shook his head. "No, nothing. I'm just waiting for a call from the office. They're still contacting me, despite the situation. I'm sorry." His explanation was reasonable, but Jasmine's intuition told her otherwise. Their conversation was interrupted by a nurse entering the room. She wore a name tag that read Brenna and began checking on Jasmine's condition with a bright smile. "How are you feeling this morning, Mrs. Franco? Has the pain subsided?" Brenna checked Jasmine's blood pressure, giving Austin a friendly smile. Austin merely nodded briefly to her before quickly averting his eyes. "It's a little better, thank you," Jasmine replied. Brenna checked the IV and handed Jasmine a pill. "This is a painkiller prescribed by the doctor. Please take it with water." After Jasmine took the medication, Brenna nodded with satisfaction, made some notes, and left the room. Austin followed, saying he needed to make a work call alone. Jasmine was suddenly overcome with intense drowsiness. The painkiller seemed too strong. She tried to resist, but her eyelids grew heavy, and soon she fell into a deep sleep. When she awoke, a different nurse was in the room holding Daniel. "Oh, you're awake! The baby was hungry, so I've been holding him." Jasmine looked at the clock. It was past noon. She had slept for 4 hours. A normal painkiller shouldn't have made her sleep so long. "The medication seems to have had a strong effect on me," Jasmine said, her head still foggy. "Yes, Brenna noted that in your chart. We'll adjust the dosage next time," the nurse said, handing the baby to Jasmine. That afternoon, Jasmine felt another change in her condition. This time, it was sudden nausea and heart palpitations. She pressed the nurse call button and Brenna appeared immediately. "What's wrong?" "I feel sick, and my heart is beating fast." Brenna took her blood pressure again and placed a hand on her forehead. "You might have a slight fever. Temporary fevers after childbirth aren't uncommon. I'll adjust the medication in your IV." She changed the IV bag and made another note about Jasmine's condition. As Brenna left the room, Jasmine saw her take out a mobile phone and send a message to someone. In the evening, Brenna brought Hazel to visit. Hazel's eyes sparkled when she first saw her little brother. "Mom, Daniel is so tiny." Jasmine gently embraced her daughter and kissed her hair. "Yes, he is, but he'll grow bigger and bigger. I hope he becomes as smart as you." Brenna looked at Jasmine with concern. "You look pale. Are you all right?" Jasmine told her about the changes in her condition and how the medication seemed too strong. Brenna frowned. "That's strange. Shouldn't you talk to your doctor about it?" Just then, Brenna entered the room again. She showed an overly friendly attitude toward Hazel. "Oh, you must be Hazel. I've heard so much about you from your mother. What a smart girl you are." Jasmine was confused. She had never mentioned Hazel to Brenna. Hazel herself clearly felt uncomfortable and moved closer to her mother. "I don't know this nurse," Hazel whispered to Jasmine. Brenna, seeming not to notice, said, "It's medication time," and offered another pill. Jasmine eyed the pill suspiciously, but didn't want to cause a scene in front of Brenna and Hazel. She took the pill and waited for Brenna to leave. "Brenna, don't you think there's something strange about that nurse?" Brenna agreed. "Yes." It was unnatural that she knew Hazel's name. Hazel left the room briefly, saying she wanted to get some water. When she returned, her expression was dark, as if she wanted to say something. When Brenna excused herself to buy some food from the cafeteria, leaving Jasmine and Hazel alone, Hazel approached her mother's bed and said in a low voice, "Mom, I've seen that nurse before, with Dad." Jasmine's heart jumped. What do you mean? 2 weeks ago, Dad picked me up from school and took me for ice cream. I saw Dad and that woman talking at an outside table. They both looked serious. Jasmine was speechless. Austin had said he would be working late that day. Hazel had no reason to lie. That evening, after Austin's brief visit, Jasmine heard him leave the room. However, he didn't immediately walk away down the hallway. Instead, she heard Austin talking quietly with someone in the corridor. She couldn't make out what was said, but it was definitely a woman's voice. That night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. Anxiety and doubt occupied her mind. The next morning, Jasmine gazed at the sunlight streaming through the window, nursing her restless thoughts. She had awakened several times during the night and hadn't slept well. In the bassinet next to her, Daniel breathed peacefully. Feeling the fragility and preciousness of this small life, Jasmine reflected on what Hazel had told her yesterday. I saw Dad with that nurse. Suspicions about Austin were eating away at her heart. She had sensed changes in his attitude before the birth, but she never imagined he might be involved with another woman, especially one who was her nurse. Jasmine felt a headache coming on. The morning vital check was performed by a different nurse. She explained that Brenna would be on duty in the afternoon and checked Jasmine's condition before leaving. The IV was still running, but the painkiller dosage seemed to have been reduced, as Jasmine's head felt clearer. In the morning, Jasmine received a visit from her attending physician. The doctor seemed satisfied with her recovery, but was concerned about the fever and nausea. Let's do another blood test, just to be safe. After the doctor left, Jasmine picked up her mobile phone and hesitantly called Austin. He answered after the third ring. Jasmine, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? No, I'm fine. Jasmine tried to sound calm. I just wanted to know if you could come with Hazel when she visits today. On the other end of the line, Austin could be heard taking a sharp breath. That's difficult today. I have an important meeting. I understand. Jasmine couldn't hide her disappointment. Talk to you later, then. After hanging up, Jasmine sank deep into her bed, staring at the ceiling. Was her intuition correct? Or was this paranoia due to her postpartum mental state? At lunchtime, Brenna appeared. She acted as cheerfully as ever, but Jasmine noticed that her eyes weren't smiling. Brenna brought the meal and another pill. This is an additional antibiotic prescribed by the doctor. It's to prevent infection. Jasmine stared at the pill. She hadn't heard the doctor give such instructions during the morning rounds. Did my doctor say this? Brenna hesitated for a moment. Yes, of course, it's recorded in your chart. Jasmine took the pill in her hand but didn't swallow it. I'll take it later. I want to eat first. Brenna briefly showed a dissatisfied expression, but quickly composed herself. All right, I'll check back later. After Brenna left, Jasmine hid the pill in the bedside table drawer. Her feeling that something was wrong was growing stronger. Around 2:00 in the afternoon, Brenna brought Hazel. Hazel clutched a small bouquet and rushed to her mother. Jasmine embraced her daughter tightly. Mom, are you okay? Hazel looked up at her mother's face with concern. Yes, I'm fine, Jasmine smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Brenna picked up Daniel and, while rocking him, said, Jasmine, I'm going to buy some drinks. What would you like, Hazel? Apple juice, Hazel answered enthusiastically. When Brenna left the room, Hazel's expression changed. She moved closer to her mother's bed and said in a low voice, Mom, I saw that nurse again today. She was talking with Dad in the hallway. Jasmine's heart began to race. When? Just now, when we'd arrived at the hospital. They didn't notice us. Hazel's eyes reflected fear. Mom! She had a scary face. Jasmine squeezed her daughter's hand. Hazel, what do you mean? Hazel moved even closer to her mother and said in an almost inaudible voice, She told Dad, we'll do it today. Dad said, Not yet. Mom, is she going to do something? Jasmine caught her breath. Children's intuition is sharp. Hazel had sensed something. Jasmine herself had felt something unnatural about Brenna's behavior. The overly strong effect of the medicine, knowing Hazel's name, and this morning's suspicious antibiotic. Suddenly, voices could be heard from the hallway. Hazel quickly stood up and listened toward the window. Then, with a determined expression, she quietly began to draw the curtains in the hospital room. Hazel, what are you doing? Without turning around, Hazel said, Mom, she's coming. After closing the curtains, Hazel rushed to her mother's bed and with a small but serious expression said, Mom, get under the bed, right now. Jasmine sensed her daughter's urgency and fear. Hazel's eyes held a wisdom and determination beyond her years. Jasmine acted without hesitation. She gently picked up Daniel and, dragging the IV stand with her, stood beside the bed. Hazel, you come too. She first knelt on the floor and, still holding the baby, carefully slid under the bed. Her postpartum body still felt pain, but she ignored it. Hazel quickly crawled in beside her mother. As the two held their breath under the bed, they heard the hospital room door open. Quiet footsteps approached. Jasmine gently rocked Daniel to prevent him from crying while holding her breath. Hazel clung to her mother's arm, trembling with fear. The footsteps stopped near the bed. There was a sound of someone touching the pillow on the bed. Where did she go? A woman's voice muttered. It was Brenna. Jasmine's heart pounded violently. She suddenly felt Hazel's small hand cover her mouth. Hazel was warning her mother to stay quiet. Smart girl. Jasmine nodded slightly and gently squeezed Hazel's hand. Brenna seemed to have pressed the nurse call button. The patient is missing, they heard her say. Just then, another set of footsteps entered the room, heavier ones, belonging to a man. What are you doing? Where's Jasmine? It was Austin's voice. Brenna's voice came back low and dangerously resonant. Your obstacle will soon be gone with just one injection. What are you talking about? Austin's voice was disturbed. We planned this, Austin. You and me and the baby. We don't need your wife. Brenna's voice had a tinge of madness. The baby will be ours. Jasmine was frozen with terror. In her arms, Daniel began to stir. Jasmine kissed the baby even more gently, praying he would stay quiet. Hazel's face was pale, her eyes filled with fear, but she bravely remained still, trying to protect her mother and brother. From under the bed, Jasmine could see Brenna's white nursing shoes and Austin's leather shoes. They were standing face to face. Austin's feet stepped backward. What are you saying? I only said I wanted to break up. I don't intend to hurt anyone. A ray of light shone in Jasmine's heart. While Austin had certainly been having an affair with Brenna, he didn't seem to be participating in this crazed plan. However, that hardly changed the current situation. Brenna had a syringe with a lethal dose of drugs, and she was looking for Jasmine. You promised! You said we would be together! Brenna's voice trembled with anger. Jasmine looked at Hazel's face. Along with fear, there was determination in her daughter's eyes. Hazel gently pointed to her mother's arm, showing the watch-like nurse call button attached to it. Jasmine understood and nodded slightly. It was a race against time. From their limited view under the bed, they could see Brenna's and Austin's feet still facing each other. You promised me a future together. Brenna's voice was growing louder. If she were gone, we could be a perfect family. Are you crazy? Austin's voice shook with anger. I only said I wanted to end our affair. I never talked about hurting Jasmine or Hazel or the baby. Under the bed, Jasmine stiffened at hearing her name. Beside her, Hazel silently wept. Jasmine gently embraced her daughter, trying to encourage her. Daniel remained with his eyes closed, barely breathing. Break up? Break up with me? Brenna's voice turned cold and sharp. Didn't you tell me things weren't going well with your wife? That you didn't want a second child? I did say that, but it was from pre-birth anxiety. The moment I saw Daniel, my thinking changed. Austin's voice had regained its composure. Brenna, calm down. Nothing irreversible has happened yet. Put down that syringe, and let's talk. Jasmine had complex feelings about her husband's words. She couldn't forgive his infidelity, but at least now he was trying to protect his family. Brenna's foot stepped forward. It's too late, Austin. I've planned everything. Jasmine's illness, the overdose of medication. It's all my doing. I've prepared it so no one will question if she dies from complications. Austin could be heard gasping. You? Are you sane? Love sometimes drives people mad. Brenna's voice had regained a strange calmness. If you love me, you should understand. This is for our future. Jasmine felt the blood in her body freezing. Brenna was completely insane, and she was desperately thinking of a way to escape the situation. She had pressed the nurse call button, but how long would it take for hospital staff to arrive? Brenna, you're sick. You need help. Austin's feet stepped backward. I will never allow you to hurt Jasmine. So, Brenna's voice echoed coldly, then you're an obstacle too. Footsteps moved, and it seemed a struggle had begun between them. Jasmine couldn't see what was happening, but she heard something fall to the floor. Austin let out a pained sound. Brenna, stop! Hazel's hand gripped Jasmine's arm tightly. Jasmine sensed her daughter's terror. She was trembling with fear herself, but she had to appear strong in front of Hazel. Just then, the hospital room door was flung open. Is everything all right? The nurse called. Another nurse's voice could be heard. Then, a moment of silence followed by a surprised voice. Brenna, what are you doing? Don't interfere, Brenna shouted. Security, come quickly! The nurse called out into the hallway. Amid the confusion, multiple footsteps entered the room. Jasmine held Hazel tightly and protected Daniel. She has a syringe, someone shouted. After some commotion, the room suddenly fell silent. It's safe. We've restrained her, a man's voice announced. Jasmine took a deep breath and made a decision. Hazel, it's okay now. Let's come out. She slowly crawled out from under the bed, holding Daniel in her arms and leading Hazel by the hand. She stood up, met by the surprised expressions of everyone in the room. There were 2 nurses, 2 security staff, and Austin in the room. Austin's face had scratch marks, and his shirt was disheveled. Brenna was being restrained by security, struggling wildly. A syringe had fallen to the floor from her hand. Jasmine! Austin was stunned. Under the bed, I hid with Mom, Hazel said in a small voice. I was scared of that woman. Seeing the 2 of them, Brenna began struggling more violently. You ruined everything! We could have been happy! Security firmly restrained her and removed her from the room. The hospital administrator was called, and the institution was in an uproar over the gravity of the situation. Jasmine, Hazel, and Daniel were moved to another room. The police were called, and the syringe Brenna had been carrying was collected as evidence. Emergency tests showed the contents of the syringe were a lethal dose of morphine. The hospital's medical safety manager explained to Jasmine, Brenna Collins was hired by our hospital 2 months ago, but we've discovered she falsified her credentials. She apparently has a history of psychiatric hospitalization and caused similar problems at another hospital. Stroking Hazel's hair with trembling hands, Jasmine asked, But why was I targeted? According to the police's initial investigation, Collins had a brief relationship with your husband and gathered information about you and your family in the process, the manager explained apologetically. She arranged to be assigned to you and was targeting your delivery. Austin stood outside Jasmine's new hospital room door. His face showed deep regret and shame. Jasmine saw him, but said nothing. Let me talk to you. Austin entered the room. I'll explain everything. Hazel, could you wait outside for a bit? Jasmine said gently to her daughter. Hazel looked anxiously at her mother, but nodded and left the room. I met Brenna 3 months ago, Austin began in a heavy tone. It was just a temporary mistake. I tried to end it a month ago, but she wouldn't accept it. However, I never thought she was this deranged. I can't believe it. Jasmine's voice was cold. Your reckless behavior put our lives in danger. I know. I don't expect to be forgiven. Austin bowed his head. But for Hazel and Daniel's sake, please let me try again. Jasmine gazed out the window. Her heart was filled with the pain of betrayal, but at the same time, she felt deep gratitude that their lives had been saved by Hazel's courage and quick thinking. I need time to think, she finally said. Right now, I just want to focus on the children. Austin nodded silently and left the room. 3 months later, Jasmine sat on the small porch of her new home, watching Hazel play in the garden. Baby Daniel slept peacefully in her arms. The new house was smaller than their previous one, but the warm sunshine and quiet environment, surrounded by greenery, were ideal for healing their wounded hearts. Brenna Collins had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and delusional disorder following a psychiatric evaluation and was confined to a state facility. Police investigations revealed that she had greatly exaggerated her brief relationship with Austin, even fantasizing about marriage and family planning. More surprisingly, she had caused similar problems at hospitals where she had previously worked but had concealed her record through credential falsification. "Mom, look! A butterfly!" Hazel called from the garden, stretching her small arms toward the sky. Jasmine smiled. Hazel was receiving psychological counseling twice a week, but was gradually regaining her original brightness. With the resilience typical of children, though occasional anxious expressions remained, she had developed a pride in being a little hero. The divorce proceedings with Austin had been completed last month. He had quit his job and moved to a city on the West Coast. Child support was paid regularly, but he didn't come to see Daniel. It was arranged that he would talk to Hazel once a month by phone. With the help of a lawyer, Jasmine had successfully obtained sole custody of the children. Through Brenna's introduction, Jasmine had started working 3 days a week at the local library. The limited working hours gave her plenty of time to spend with her children and an opportunity to build relationships in the new community. The library's storytelling sessions had become her small joy. "Would you like some tea?" Brenna appeared from the back door holding 2 mugs. Since the incident, she had become Jasmine's strong supporter, often visiting on weekends to help with housework and childcare. "Thank you," Jasmine accepted the mug. "I couldn't have recovered without you." "Don't say that." Brenna sat beside her. "You're stronger than you think, and so is Hazel." Jasmine gazed at her daughter running around in the garden. She was truly brave. She saved our lives. Life is unpredictable and sometimes cruel. Jasmine thought about the true meaning of family while contemplating this. It's not just about blood ties, but about bonds, where people protect and trust each other. Through their great ordeal, a stronger bond had formed between her, Hazel, and Daniel than before. "Mom!" Hazel came running up. "Is Daniel awake? Can I hold him?" Jasmine smiled and handed the small baby to her daughter. Hazel carefully held her brother and gently kissed his forehead. "I'll always protect you," Hazel whispered to her brother. As Jasmine watched her 2 children, she felt hopeful about their future journey together, despite the uncertainties of the road ahead.